How's it going, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. It's time for Nick at Night, my weekly non-spoiler comic book review show. Just got done reading on my books, so let's go over them right now. I'm going to go ahead and put my grading scale up. When I start talking about a book, I'm going to put the cover of that book on the grading scale so you can see how they stack up against each other. And with that out of the way, let's go into the big two as we always do. Starting with DC, we have Detective Comics number 1070 from Rom V. Got that variant cover, which is actually a very strange one. It's got Batman with a lantern going through some kind of a crypt, and you see the Joker's face like poking up over there. It was really weird. I didn't even notice it until I started looking at this cover some more. But again, if you're into Rom V's writing style, if you like him and his independent work, I think you're going to love Detective Comics. It's definitely got that Rom V flair and vibe to it. And the art really, really helps out with that as well. And so this is a really brilliant book. We basically have this ancient Eastern family coming back over to Gotham to basically kind of reclaim what is theirs. And so we get a little bit more in the mythology of who the family is, some of the founding members, some of the rationale, some of the different people that are in the different families that are coming over here to lay claim to Gotham. And basically we have Batman just trying to keep up, trying to understand who this new nemesis is, what's their relationship with Gotham City in general. And they are very well equipped, and they're very knowledgeable about how to take over a civilization, how to reclaim a city. And so it's actually been a really fun ride to see how they're kind of twisting the different people that live inside of Gotham, both the just residents of Gotham and some of the villains that we've come to know and love over the years. And then of course we have the Bat family just in the mix right now, just trying to stay one step ahead, trying to understand what exactly is going on. Then the backstory we actually have is a cool Mr. Freeze backstory. He's referenced inside of this issue as well. So is Two-Face, so is Solomon Grundy, and so there's just a lot of cool villains that they use inside this story. So if you're looking for a cool Rom V book with Batman related, and it's actually an intriguing story, check out Detective. Then we had a new number one from DC, the Unstoppable Doom Patrol issue number 1. They also had this really cool scratch off cover that I did a little short for. So if you haven't seen that yet, check out my shorts and you can see that one. So a new Doom Patrol. I don't have a lot of experience with Doom Patrol. I watched the TV show. They've been in a few books here and there, so I was paying attention to them whenever I could. But this is really my first Doom Patrol centered comic. And so I was expecting an easy place to jump in, some kind of compelling story, some cool dynamics among the team, and I think that's what I got in this story right here. Now, did they spoon feed you all the different characters, who they were, their origin stories, their relationships, and things like that? No, you don't get that kind of a thing in here, but it is a slow, interesting introduction to the team. They're coming over to Gotham to do some investigation, and so they're trying to stay out of the radar, out of the spotlight of certain Cape Crusaders in Gotham, but it doesn't take long before they mess all that up, and they have a really cool team up slash moment with Batman, I should say. And so it is pretty cool. I like the team. I like their powers. It was really interesting. And we get some cool crossovers with some other DC characters along the way as well. So is it a real new reader friendly book where they get origin stories and things like that? No, but you do get an organic story. It doesn't make you feel lost. You can follow it along pretty easily, and you get a little Batman action in here as well. So it's not a bad number one at all. Art was really fun as well. So I would recommend checking it out. If you're interested in Doom Patrol and haven't read a whole lot from them, check this one out. All right, that was actually it for DC. The Marvel scene, we have It's Jeff, issue number 1. I got that rubber ducky in the Bath variant right there. So we were going to check this one out. Kelly Thompson on this one. So I was like, okay, well, we're going to jump in and see what's going on. And so it's Jeff, right? So we have some West Coast Avengers, little shark guy. And he's been around in comics here and there. He's kind of recognizable, just kind of is like a meme in a way. But this book right here is a series of short stories, completely dialogueless. You just have to follow along. And it was pretty interesting. I feel like if you have younger kids, this is like perfectly aimed for them. Or, if you're just like a huge West Coast Avenger Jeff fan, then I guess you're going to enjoy this too. I felt myself just kind of like flipping through very, very quickly to get to the end of each one of these stories just to see what's going on. And, with the variant at a price point of $6, I don't know. I would have passed on this if I would have known what it actually was. Was it cute at the end of the day? Of course. Is your younger kid going to flip through this and think the stories are funny? Watching him steal Captain America's shield and use it as a sled? Of course. So yeah, it was entertaining to say, to at least, right? But for $6, I was hoping for a little bit more. What did you guys think if you read it? All right, Star Wars High Republic issue number 7 from Slot. Now, this is my least favorite Star Wars book I'm reading right now, but to be honest, I'm only reading a couple Star Wars books at this point. And, everything that I was criticizing this book for just kind of continues in this issue right here. We basically have a Jedi and a Padawan. They were investigating this crime that was happening. Some artifacts were being stolen. Of course, the city they go to, they don't like Jedis. They have this weird council that's ruling this particular town. And, they had ulterior motives, and they're just trying to deceive the Jedi. And then there's this weird other faction that gets involved and starts creating mayhem, because the Jedi are there and the whole town turns against them for some kind of brainwashing activity going on. There was just a lot of weird things happening in this book. There's so many little factions. I can't even focus on what the main objective is. We're all over the place with this book. They introduced this new thief character who's basically a scapegoat, and he's just always in the wrong place at the wrong time. And he has some heroic moments in this issue and in some of the previous issues too. But this book is scattered, man. I can't keep track of what's going on, who's who the good guys are, who the bad guys are. So this one's really a pass for me, High Republic. Now we're going to get into another Star Wars book here very soon that's better, but High Republic, pretty much a skip in my opinion. Now, Charles Soule's High Republic The Blade. This is issue number 4. Now this one is on the other end of the spectrum, but not necessarily for the story, but for the characters it introduces. We're actually following Porter Engle and Barish, which are basically two Jedis that were sent to this one planet to do some negotiation and some peacekeeping and things like that. There's actually a little war going on. You stole our princess and we want her back, and we're going to have this gigantic war and elicit the help of this third party assassin squad kind of a thing to help get our way. Now, Porter Engle, man, this guy is amazing. He's the, jump into the fire, really amazing with the lightsaber, with the Force in general. And then his, sister from another Mr. Barish, she's actually a Jedi who's more in tune with being able to tell the truth or being able to observe the truth. So she goes around and starts talking to the different high royalties and trying to understand what the actual story is while he's on the ground floor, actually doing the lightsaber battles and things like that. So the two of them make a hell of a pair, and they actually grew up together through the Order. And they're really two compelling characters, and I can't wait to see more about them. But with that said, the overall story that they're in right now wasn't really intriguing. It was the characters, which is really fun because the characters are going to continue to be in other stories, and they're the interesting part, not the story itself. So I can't wait to read more about that. 4 issues. Again, the story is not super strong, but the characters are, and that's what I'm really excited for in the future. So check out The Blade. It was really cool. All right, next we're going to talk about some Daredevil. We have Daredevil issue number 9. Got this Alex Ross timeless variant because these are going to be wrapping up here pretty soon, but I'm sure we're going to get a whole nother edition of timeless variants very soon. And so what's going on inside of Daredevil? So they just got done with their gigantic battle, the hand versus the fist against the Punisher's army right now. And so both sides are kind of licking their wounds at the moment. They have a temporary victory in this page, in these pages right here. So they're kind of regrouping, mending their wounds, things like that, going on to the next step, trying to follow this book of the fist in a way. It has all these prophecies in there. You have to perform these steps in order to fully take control of this conflict, right? And so they're on that path at the moment. But man, in this issue though, we get the rug pulled from us. We were led to believe one thing, another thing actually happens. There's actually some huge tragedies that are inside of this issue here, and it really kind of blew me away, honestly, about the end of it. It happened so quickly. You don't have a whole lot of time to really process everything that's going on. It's definitely worth a second read, and I'm sure a lot of these tragedies are going to be explained a little bit more in the further issues, and I can't wait to get inside of that. And then this issue ends very similarly than how Punisher ended, because there's this gigantic war going on between Daredevil and Punisher in both of these runs. And you're going to get on the radar of some powerful allies or former allies if you keep this up very much longer. And that's what we had at the end of both of those runs. So this book has been really cool so far. Chip's doing a heck of a job bringing this story to us and tying it into the Punisher run, which is one of the best Marvel reads I've ever had, or I've ever read, honestly. So check out Punisher if you're not already. And so, yeah, man, I can't wait to see where these two books go from here. Daredevil, really solid run. Better read it. All right, our next Marvel book is Thor issue number 32 from Groenbeck. And I did not see Kate's on the co-writing credits here, but that's okay. We also have Gideon and Wilson on the art team. And so this book has been okay. so far. So we introduced this person who's kind of orchestrating all these weird things that are happening inside of our universe right now. We have Thor with the knowledge now that like hell, where Hela is actually vacant pretty much, like all the bodies and everybody's missing. Valhalla is empty as well. So someone's like siphoning all this power or kidnapping all these people for some means, right? And, you know, so we have Thor on a rampage right now, just trying to get some information about who could do this, why would they do that, all that stuff. And we, the readers, are introduced to the villain that's responsible for this. I mean, no hints or anything like that. But, you know, as a reader, we were introduced to who it is, but we don't exactly know all the motivation besides like, I just want more power, right? And so we're trying to figure out exactly what the end game is besides I want more power, and how we're going to get there. We explore that a little bit in this issue as well. So I will say like my interest overall in Thor is a little bit waning right now. It's like, okay, cool. We get a really good villain, but let's get a good story as well. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I am. It's kind of middle of the road, not really necessary reading at the moment. But if that changes, I'll let you know. So check it out and let me know if you're reading it and what you thought about it. All right, a book is back that I'm really excited about. We have Venom Lethal Protector. Again, that Alex Ross timeless variant. Very timely for that cover right there, which is a really beautiful cover. I'm loving this one. So David Michelinie is back on Lethal Protector, and I loved the last run of Lethal Protector that we had last year. And so this is a continuation of that nostalgic feel that we had back in that other issue as well. Drawn very well. I like the coloring and everything. It's very action-packed, a lot of stuff going on, and so Venom is trying to stay out of trouble, but he can't help himself but find himself in these weird situations where he has to team up with unlikely allies, things like that. And in this issue here, we have some Silver Sable action as well. So if you're into Silver Sable, you're going to love this issue because we have some awesome moments with her and the team, and we get to understand why she's involved. Crazy mission they're on right now to protect this insanely powerful device. And so we have Eddie Brock as Venom having to team up with her and figure out what to do from there. We get some other classic Spider-Man villains in here, and also a mysterious person towards the end of the book kind of pulling the strings on this whole thing. So interested to see where this goes. I loved the first run of Lethal Protector that we got, not the first one, but the most recent one. And this one so far has been pretty solid. One issue in. Did you guys read it? What'd you think? All right, the next Marvel book, and I believe the last one is actually another timeless variant from Ross. We have the Mandarin here, but this is actually Invincible Iron Man issue number 4. And I thought I stopped getting these, but luckily we had these Alex Ross covers, and I read 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to continue to see what's going on with Tony Stark in here. Basically, you know, he's washed up. He's completely out of money. He's out of resources. His friend list is very short as well. And so everyone seems to be out to get him. And there's just one villain we explored in the early days of the most recent X-Men run who kind of has it out for a lot of superheroes at the moment, especially the mutants out there who took over Mars and whatnot. So this villain here actually was impersonating Tony Stark in different ways, getting his villains back on his radar for revenge. And so we have basically the showdown between Furlong, I think is how you pronounce his name, and Tony Stark in here. He's basically taking over Stark Industries for certain reasons that we explore inside of this book as well. So it's a big showdown between those two characters there, and both of them seem to be up to the challenge, and it gets me kind of excited. I really like this one. So I like the villain in this story. I think he was underutilized in the X-Men run. I think he's very powerful, very formidable. I'm not exactly sure I like the way they use him in this issue, but I'm excited to have him back in the fold. So Invincible Iron Man hasn't been required reading or necessary reading, but it's still been fun to see what Tony's been up to, especially when he's in this downward slump right now. And it's got an interesting villain at least, so we'll see where it goes. All right, going over to some indie books, starting with Image Comics, we have Once Upon a Time at the End of the World from Jason Aaron. And if you've been watching these review shows, you know that I love this book. This book is really fun. What's hilarious about this one is the level of humor that they have in here. Basically, again, our main character, one of our main characters was actually kidnapped by this weird wasteland Boy Scout cult, and he's actually been put into a trial where if he wins, he'll basically earn his freedom, but if he loses, he gets killed. And so he's like, I've been preparing this entire time. I know everything about the wasteland. The person you're going after, a former troop member of your own troop, actually taught me everything that she knows, and I am up for the challenge. And then he actually gets slaughtered in pretty much every single event But we get some cool retribution at the very end right here, where our backup actually comes and helps save the day. And of course, this book is all about the relationship between our two main characters and the love that they have for each other, and it really blossoms inside of this issue, which I think is great. I think it's a cool thing, and I like to see where this book is going right here, especially after we basically disarmed this wasteland troop that we've been running from for the last couple of issues. And the other thing this book really does well is there's usually two different stories going on. There's like an origin story between these two characters, our two main characters, but there's also many years later view that they explore as well. And it is way more gruesome and violent, and both of our main characters are grown up. Something happened between these two people. One of our guys, he's kind of like Data from the Goonies, extremely inventive, extremely creative, builds things on the fly, things like that. He actually enhances himself to a point where it's just like insane in the future. And something happens between our two main characters. They become enemies, and I love the different art style and the shift in story tones and things like that when you get that little 3 or 4 page ending in each one of these issues. Very, very cool way of telling a story. Can't wait to read more. Check this one out. All right, everyone's favorite Cannibal Red Room story is out again this week. We have Love Stick issue number 6. And man, this book is extremely graphic, sexualized, violent, and this issue in particular. So whatever you saw in the previous books is nothing compared to what you see inside of this one here. So if you've been following along, we basically have Domino. She owns and operates her own Red Room right now, but she has an origin story we've been exploring in the last couple of issues when she's teaming up and essentially being dominated by this one guy here who brings her into this weird scene of all these like cannibalized kind of people who basically brainwash people and have them as like their slaves and their pets and end up eating them at some point. But she's really kind of sick of that regime right now. She wants to go out on her own. She thinks that her and this guy can actually do bigger and better things. And so this is a story of her really branching out on her own, starting her own thing and bringing him back into the mix, and what that would look like if she did it. Now, unfortunately, I really can't show you pretty much any other pages inside of this book, but just know that it is extremely sexualized, and you're definitely going to get the shower ready after you read this book. So check this one out if you have the stomach for it. All right, another book from Image Comics. We have Indigo Children issue number 1, and man, this book kind of came out of nowhere. I heard it's very hard to get a copy of at the moment. I think at our shop we only had a few covers because I don't really know this creative team either, and sometimes when I see a new indie coming out and I don't know the creative team, it's kind of hard to take a chance on it. But I'm glad I did in this instance because this story was actually really, really cool. It kind of reminds me of an issue or an episode of X-Files in a way, right? We have like this kid who's extremely capable, like the smarter than anybody else that these therapists and school teachers and things have ever seen. He's got some kind of telekinetic or psychic power, something. He's got some kind of power set that we explore throughout this issue. There's a big tragedy in the beginning. We don't think there's any survivors, things like that, but then the story jumps many years. We got some reporter following an old lead on some really gifted kids, which leads him into different parts of the world where he shouldn't be, interacting with some secret societies and things like that, and actually coming in contact with some of these superpowered individuals. And it's a pretty intriguing story. Trying to show you some pages of what's actually going on in here. So that kind of covers the tragedy that we see in the beginning. But it's a really interesting book because of the perspective is really from this reporter who's trying to dig up some truth, but it's like a truth that nobody wants him to find. And so they try to cover up his tracks, cover up their tracks as best they can. But of course we have some amazing display of powers in here that we're going to discover more and more about in the next coming issues. So Indigo Children was really under the radar for me. Glad I got it. It was very intriguing. Again, it's very X-Files-y. So if you like that kind of stuff, I think you're going to dig this one. Check it out. All right, the next book from Image, Mark Millar and Frank Quietly. We have Ambassadors issue number 1. Another one that was very reminiscent of Indigo Children number 1. I don't know if this one's as hard to find as Indigo Children, but this one was great as well. First off, Frank Quietly's art. holy cow, is absolutely amazing inside this book. Very, very well done and well colored as well. So I'm totally digging that right here. But we have a lot of jumping around right here. But the basic premise is, people have been trying to recreate Superman in a way forever, all across the world, different governments and things like that. People have gotten close, but mistakes were made. And at some point, somebody actually figures out a way to basically become a Superman, but they want to share that power with different people throughout the world. So it turns into a Willy Wonka situation. It's like, hey, you can come here and I'll grant 6 people from across the world with superpowers, and we'll figure it out from there. So who do we choose? We get to figure out how we're going to do that in this issue and the upcoming ones. But I like the way it played out. It's got an interesting story. It's got a cool history with like the different superpowers and the different experiments they had throughout the time. And man, Frank Quietly's art is absolutely incredible inside this book, and I am so excited to read the future ones going forward. So let me know if you read Ambassadors and what you guys thought about it down below. All right, we have Tim Seeley and Tony Felice on Local Man issue number 2, and I almost showed that cover because it is a flip comic where we get 2 different stories, one shorter 90s style story, but then we have our main story up in the front here too. So a very, very grounded story. What would happen if like a member of a 90s superhero squad basically did the wrong thing within the squad and got banished, and then there was like a court order out there for them never to display their powers ever again or participate in any kind of law enforcement activity? We sent him back home to live with his family, who's basically disgraced, and so the whole town doesn't like this guy because of what he did to this superhero team, things like that, but he can't help but get himself into trouble from time to time while he's at home. Again, everyone seems to have it out for this guy. So it's basically him just trying to navigate these waters right now. It's a very, very grounded book. It's almost like what it would be like if superheroes were real. They were living in this environment and one of them was kind of disgraced. You know what I mean? He can't help but go back to doing what he knows how to do best. So very, very cool book. I like the perspective of it. I like how grounded it is and how real it feels. So it's really interesting. Check it out. Next, we have an obscure one called Everything Sucks. This is from Silver Sprocket Comics. And I don't know why I picked this one up, probably because of the title, the fact that it has a foil cover. It comes with a centerfold pinup poster and stickers in the back as well. So that's probably why I picked it up. But and the title, whatever, is kind of catchy. It very much reminds me of Adventure Time, something like that. It basically follows this character who is really into like MMO RPGs online, kind of like World of Warcraft or something like that, and the obsession that you can have getting into that game. They have a friend that comes over, and then they get into the game themselves, and they're like, what's the point of this? Just kind of killing rats and picking up apples and things like that in the game. But then it fast forwards like 2 weeks at a time, and they're both just like in their slum in their house with just like pizza boxes and soda cans laying all over the place. And so they're just completely enveloped into this game right now, completely ignoring their personal hygiene and things like that. So the whole issue is basically them playing this game, and that's the perspective that we see doing some dungeon crawling, taking out some bosses, things like that, fighting the mobs. And it was kind of interesting. But at the end of the day, it's just like the novelty of having the book and the poster and the stickers and things like that. It does have a $8 price point to it, so it's pretty expensive for what it is. But it was still fun, and it's just something I took a chance on. But Everything Sucks. Did you check it out? What'd you think? All right, the next book from Scout Comics is Granite Skatepunk by Travis Gibbs. And this was a book that I completely forgot that I pre-ordered, but I got it in and it was actually pretty fun. So I'm glad I got it. So the book actually opens up in Rochester, New Hampshire. We basically are in this AA meeting. This guy is doing the whole, my name is so-and-so and I'm an alcoholic routine. And he's telling us basically in this like self-narration of what's kind of going on inside of his head, the type of family and environment that he grew up in, where he was always kind of battling these demons, and his parents were either left him or were murdered or were killed when he was younger, and they were kind of mysterious ways. And so, he kind of grew up in this area where he didn't have any parental guidance, things like that, got into drugs and alcohol, got into a bad relationship that was not very positive. So, just like all of his bad habits were just being reinforced over and over again. And so we get to slowly learn that like, maybe this girlfriend is not who she seems. Maybe there's a darker history to her family, into this town in general. And this book turns into like this really weird exploration of witchcraft and like Salem witch trials and the history between all that stuff, who his parents really were, maybe this hidden power that's inside of him, and how this girl's trying to exploit him or pull this power out for her own means, perhaps. And so it's actually a really interesting book. I like the art style. It's extremely dark, very, very muddy and gritty, but it does have a lot of things going on. You know, it has a lot of line work and things like that. It's not just like washed over with blurry colors and things like that. There's actually some texture to it, which I really like. And so this book really took a turn about halfway through. I enjoyed reading it. I don't know if I'm going to keep reading it, but it was a cool number one. Let me know if you read it and what you thought. All right, this next couple books are from Whatnot Publishing, and I didn't enjoy number ones of either one of them, but we're going to get into number twos. So this one's actually Liquid Kill issue number 2. And I got to be honest, I don't know what the heck's going on inside of this book. I don't remember what really happened in the first issue besides introducing us to like this cyberpunk kind of a town. There was some assassins or something like that. Some people were getting killed. People are trying to rise to power within these little gangs in this cyberpunk kind of a village or city or whatever. And so this book is completely different. Basically, we have this hotel or something like that that caters to the super rich. They have all the drugs and women you could possibly want, whatever's going on. And we have this hit squad that's basically showing up on the shores and basically taking everybody out. I don't know, to take control of the place or to take somebody or get something. I have no idea. So this book completely confused me. I don't mind the art style, but like, my gosh, we just need a little bit more color or a little bit more line work or something. The faces, I don't know. I did not really enjoy this book. And so issue number 2, I was hoping would turn it around. It did not for sure. Liquid Kill, definitely a pass. But dang it, man, the second Whatnot book we read was the Exiled issue number 2. And again, the first issue was okay. This is this Wesley Snipes back book. Keanu Reeves had one as well with Berserker, but now Wesley Snipes is jumping in as well with Exiled. And so this issue number 2 was actually pretty decent. I liked it a lot. We basically have Wesley Snipes. We have a pretty much a full backside nudity going on this one page. I was just about to show you, so we're not going to do that. But basically we have Wesley Snipes here playing this character who's this detective. His partner was just recently killed, but he was part of a very traumatic event with this one cult that was actually wiped out, and he's kind of like invincible in a way, where basically he is in all these bad situations, beat up, lives through explosions, things like that, and there's no real reason why he should be able to live through those things. But he's on the case right now trying to find more about what his partner was into. Was he teaming up with some bad guys, things like that, and he's always trying to solve these mysteries from his past. But in this issue here, we actually team up with this new guy who is enlightening him about who's really behind the scenes. Maybe it's more extraterrestrial than we thought or that we were led to believe, you know, maybe it's more supernatural, things like that. So he's brought in to the fold with some of these other heroes and things like that. And his eyes are kind of opened about how big this conspiracy theory or this problem actually is. So this book was actually not that bad. I like the way that they explored the world here and they expanded everything that we learned in the first issue. Is it kind of cheesy? Yes, absolutely. So if you're into like the 90s style, like action superhero kind of stuff, I think you're going to dig this book, especially if you like a little bit of more extraterrestrial slash body enhancing, just like really over the top action. I think you might enjoy this one. All right, let's jump over to Boom Studios for the next couple of books. We have Something is Killing the Children issue number 30 with that matte powdery field cover right here. I love it when they do that. Very, very good quality, and I love that variant cover as well. It reminds me of the die-cast covers we got a little while ago, but this one has a totally different feel to it, and I just love the look at that. It's pretty awesome. So this book actually reads very much like, you know, how we've come to know Something's Killing the Children as of late. It's kind of slowing down a little bit. Erica's pretty much bringing her team together, trying to make a plan against Cutter and trying to take on this duplicate monster as well, because they're both coming after her in a way. She still has a job to do. It's looking more and more like a one-way ticket to finish this right now. Can she take out the monster without getting taken out by Cutter at the same time? And as is Cutter, who's sent to kill Erica, is she going to be utilizing the duplicate monster to her advantage to not only distract, but maybe even like wound Erica in the process, so she'll be easier to kill. Now, we both learned in the previous issues that both of these people, Erica and Cutter, are essentially expendable according to their houses because they're both such big liabilities and rule breakers and things like that. So the story is very, very slow. I would say the last 10, 15 issues, it's just been kind of dragging on slowly but surely. over time. This one didn't bother me as much as some of the other ones because we actually got to see a monster. Wow, wouldn't you know? And so we actually got to see a monster in this one, even though it was on one page, whatever. So Something's Killing the Children, still a great read. I would say the last 15 issues have been dragging, though, honestly, with like building the story. We are honestly not that much further than where we were 10 issues ago. You know what I mean? Same characters, same problem, things like that. We still haven't gotten to a resolution. So very slow burn, I would say, but still enjoyable. And I bet a lot of people would disagree with me on the review for this one. All right, the next boom book we had was TMNT and Power Rangers. This is volume number 2, issue number 4. I got the Eastman variant here, which I should have been getting the entire time, but Dan Mora's got some killer ones out there too, so I don't mind double dipping here and there. So this book has been really cool. Actually, on the cover of this book, we actually get to see our Turtle Rangers in here, and we do get to see them in action inside of this book, because in the previous issues, we actually had our Power Rangers become kind of like the mutant analogs of themselves, which is really cool too, because we got all these gigantic battles going on different fronts, and they need that level up to definitely take care of the bad guys. The art is handled really well inside of here. I love the little team up with the different villains. We have a lot of Shredder action in here too. We have Casey Jones in here, which I'm absolutely loving as well. We have our Turtles trying to stop Krang from taking over the world and deploying his forces throughout the world, trying to take them some stuff over. We got some Bebop and Rocksteady action in here as well. So we have everybody just doing whatever they can do. We got some Splinter action in here too. So we got so much stuff going on, and I won't reveal the last page on here, the last splash page we get, because it's pretty insane, and it's definitely got me excited to see what's going on. So very glad that I'm picking up this volume. I really wish I would have been reading volume number 2, but if you're a TMNT fan, if you're a Power Ranger fan, man, these books are great, especially written by Dan or drawn by Dan Mora. Check these ones out. All right, the last book we read this week was Don't Spit in the Wind, number 1 from Mad Cave Studios. I got this one originally because of basically the title and the art on the cover. It kind of reminds me of like a Jeff Darrow-ish, maybe like a Trencher kind of a vibe kind of thing going on. Very, a lot of line work, a lot of, detail in a way all over the place. Detail in a different sense. When you have a lot of cluttered lines and you have a lot of interesting coloring going on, it has that same kind of style, but I would say, it's not exactly the same as what you would expect in a Jeff Darrow book. But this book has been pretty interesting. Again, it's an apocalyptic world. We basically have this cleanup crew down on Earth right now doing all these different things. Our one guy here is kind of shepherding this gigantic trash compactor that's just kind of going around right now. And they're actually about to end their shift, but they have one of their guys not responding to his radio, and so everyone kind of goes on this rescue mission to see exactly where he is, what happened, what is going on. And so that's what we have right here. Kind of a slow story right now, and visually it is interesting, and there's a lot of stuff going on, but there's a lot of shortcuts taken as well in here. And so, it's not bad. It's still visually appealing, and it looks very different than anything else that I'm reading at the moment, but it is just something to note. So what is going on? Why is this guy not answering his calls? I don't know. Who knows? We're going to figure out in the next books. So it was entertaining. It was visually different than everything else I'm reading, like I said before. So it is something I'm going to continue to get just to see how this story will progress and where it could possibly go. We really don't have a villain or something to worry about right now besides like the harsh environments and whatnot. So Don't Spit in the Wind, not a bad number 1. Visually, it was interesting. Story was okay, but we'll see where it goes. So guys, that was a lot of books. I hope you enjoyed that one. If you did, go down below and hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so as well. But make sure to go down below in the comments and let me know what you read and what your favorite books of the week were. But as always, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all down below in the comments.